And this right here is why these are absolutely my favorite LEDs, and they are so good for racing. This is how to add LEDs to your quad. So today we're going to be taking a look at a bunch of different LED options you can add onto your quad. And now the purpose of this video is going to be mainly focused upon racing. However, a lot of this stuff does carry over to freestyle. It's just with freestyle, you don't really need LEDs as much as racing, because in racing oftentimes they are required, and they definitely do help for spectators and other pilots to help see you from behind. So these are just some of my favorite options from Tiny's LEDs that I typically use, and I'm going to go over them all in the video, as well as I will show how to set up the 5-volt addressable ones. Now let's just start off with this little guy. This is the original Tiny's LED. This is a custom red, white, and blue version. You can see because it is the FPV chat, the green circuit board. That is the very, very old one, which is just direct 4S power, and it powers the chips, and that's it. Let me go ahead and power this guy up with just some bare battery leads. Don't try this at home. And you can't really see it, but it is definitely red, white, and blue. This was a custom chip version made for my red, white, and blue America frame at the time. So that is pretty much the LED that started it all. Next, we're going to move on to two similar LEDs. This is the current Tiny's LED, the version 2, which is 4 to 6S. And this just has the new low profile chips. You can see are very low. And this is the same style of just direct input, 4 to 6S. And then here we have a similar offering, but much, much smaller. So this would be on something like a Tiny Whoop or a microclass quad. So there you go, you can see that's extremely bright blue. And then we have the same thing for the other one. This one is also blue. So those are pretty much just the power on and leave them be LEDs. The downfall of these ones is that they are constantly sucking power. You can't control the color, you can't turn them off. And since they're on and so incredibly bright running off of full battery voltage, they do definitely get very hot. So those are the LEDs I started out with, and now I have pretty much exclusively moved to 5-volt addressable LEDs, which are these ones that I'm going to show you here. Now these are my current favorite. You can see there's just a stack of them. These are the tiny rainbows here. You can see we have 4 RGB chips in the center, and then on both ends we have the standard connector. And one side in here you can see is data out and data in, so you can daisy chain these, which is really, really nice. And because of their size and how bright they are and how you can change the color, these are my favorite to use on my race quads. You can see here I have one of my newest builds. If we turn it around to the back, this is my preferred setup. I just go ahead and stick the LEDs on the arms with 2 double-sided sticky tape pieces, and then take the wires, put them into the flight controller, give it 5 volts, ground, and data, and there we go. That's pretty much all the wiring you have to do. And now since that's racing, I like to keep it simple and light with just 2 of those. However, you can definitely expand. Here is an extremely cool option. These are called the Tiny's LED satellites. Saddle as in like a horse saddle. You can see it's basically just this little ring that can go over any M3 stack screw. And then just like any other 5-volt LED, we have the 5-volt data in and ground connections. And these are side mounted chips here, so they're going to work out the side. And the idea with these is you go ahead and put it over your stack screw. You can see I just lifted up the nut, put it down and tighten it back, and there's still room for the wire to go. And then they can go right into the flight controller, and these provide LED outputs to these sides, and you can put these anywhere. I know NERC likes to put some on the bottom facing rearward. You can pretty much move these anywhere. I don't have this nut tightened down so it's loose. But these guys are very versatile. Pretty much anywhere there is a standoff screw, you can put these and mount them. I don't currently have any quads with these set up right now, so I'll see if I have any video of these in action. But just like the other ones, they are extremely bright, and they light up your quad and make spectating at a race so much easier. So one thing I want to talk about is, what if your quad doesn't have a large enough 5-volt regulator to support all these LEDs? This quad here is using the Tiny's LED Unity flight controller, which powers the receiver, the video transmitter, and the flight controller off of its 5-volt 2-amp BEC. And because it is a 2-amp BEC, we have plenty of power to run just these 2 extra LEDs that I need on the back. But other flight controllers like the Brain FPV Radix Lee, and I think also some Flight 1 flight controllers, don't have a strong enough 5-volt regulator. They only have like a 0.5 amp or a 1 amp. So that's where this guy comes in. This is the Tiny's LED little powerhouse, I like to call it. So this, you can see here, is part of the 5-volt 3-amp circuit that is on this thing. So it is an extra 3 amp BEC that you can add to your quad, and it is in the 20 by 20 form factor with gummies, so you can just go ahead and put it right on the stack. Obviously that is going to take some stack height, and unfortunately in this specific build I do not have enough room to run this, so you need to think about that when building with this. But everything that this has, if you see on the sides, we have 2 rows of 3 LEDs each for 6 on each side, similar to the concept of the satellites, but this is just in sort of almost like a flight controller fashion. So we have 6 of those on each side, and if you see, they do have some epoxy along the edges to help secure them. Here are our 3 inputs. On the right we have battery plus, and this takes 2 to 6S direct input, so you feed this battery voltage, not 5 volts. And then we have our data in and our ground. And then on the edges here we have our 4 output ports that are meant to go to 4 of these on the edge with a connector that looks like this. The long one to go from the flight controller or this PDB to the LED, and then the short one to go from LED to LED, or if you want to run them, say, on top and underneath the arm. And then if we look on the bottom, we pretty much have all the same pinouts with holes options if you don't want to use the plugs, which is very, very nice. So if you think about it, if you use this board and you use 2 of these LEDs per arm, 1 on top, 1 on bottom, if you count up all the chips on here, you have 12 on here, and then 4 per each board, you end up with 44 LED chips, and your quad looks insanely bright. I'll put a couple pictures of it up now. And the reason that 44 LED chips is so important is that for some international competitions, I believe for FAI and a couple other ones, some of them require at least 40 LED chips, and they have to be on top, bottom, and on the sides. So this fits all the requirements perfectly in an extremely nice and convenient package. So if you're racing in any events that have those LED requirements, this is pretty much a must. If you do not have the room to fit this board in your quad, there's also this little guy, which is pretty much just a little PDB. You have your 5 volts ground and data input here. There is no separate regulator circuit, and then it breaks out into 4 connectors. So this is going to be a lot more convenient if you're running 4 of these to plug into here and then solder 1 wire to each pad instead of trying to cram 4 wires to each pad. Might as well go ahead and get a quick weight on all of these. This V2 LED weighs half a gram. This tiny LED weighs 0.37 grams. This little LED PDB board is 0.6 grams. The powerhouse board with the chips on the sides weighs 3.7. 1 satellite by itself weighs 0.22 grams, and 1 singular tiny rainbow weighs 0.8 grams. Okay, so here's one of my race quads, and I just have this set up. I just chained off the output, and I put it into one of these, and then I took another output and just put it into a random one of these, just to show you the LEDs in action here. Let me go ahead and turn off some of the lights, and then I'm going to turn them on using my radio. Boom, and there we go. You can see we have the 2 main ones and these extra 2 that I went and added. Now on my radio, I set them to this switch. This is VTX on, LEDs on. That turns the VTX off, and that turns the LEDs off. And then over here, we have our dial, which I set up in my radio, just as an aux channel, aux 4. And this goes ahead and changes the colors. And this right here is why these are absolutely my favorite LEDs, and they are so good for racing. If I need to go up to the line and say they make me run green this round, I just turn it till I see green, and boom, there we go. If I want to run blue, that's in the center. All the way to the right is red, there's purple, all the different colors, and that's why these are just absolutely my favorite to run 2 of these on the back, and they are pretty darn bright. If you see I turn the lights back on, they are still blowing out the camera. So let me load up Betaflight, and I'll show you how to set these up. It is really simple. Okay, so here we are in Betaflight, and one thing, first of all, you need to make sure that down here you have your LED strip turned on. We're going to go over to LED strip, and now here we are with the panel, and this just sort of represents each of these blocks is a chip. So since the LEDs we're using is 4 chips, we're going to need to use a 4-chip thing. And now I'm controlling these all as basically 1 LED chip. I'm not doing them individually because you can do things, you can change these, like if I want that to be yellow, you can do all kinds of different things, you can make them flash and whatever, but I just want them to be solid and the color I want. So we need to go to wire ordering mode, and then here we're just going to drag any 4 since that is the length of our array. We're going to go to function, and now this is kind of weird. You need to set it to arm state, and then turn this on to modify on aux 4 because that is where I set that little dial up. Then down here we're going to go and I set both of these colors to red, and that makes it work. You hit save and boom, that's literally it. That's all you have to do. So that's all you have to do to set up the LEDs that I showed you. Say if you wanted to set up a larger array, like a 2x4, you could do that. Or if you wanted to daisy chain these, you do have to increase the length of this. You can do this anywhere, you just need to increase. So there would be 2 sticks long. And then if we did another one, that'd be 3 sticks long, 4 sticks long. You get the idea. And you do the same thing where you just have to take these and put them on ARM state, aux, whatever you want your switch to be. Set these both to red and hit save. And there you go. So there you go. That's pretty much going to bring us to the end of this LED video. And these were just some of my top choices for ways to add LEDs to your quad, with the 5V addressables being more tailored towards racing, where you're always needing to change the color, and then the solid always on type being more tailored toward freestyle, where you just want to add an LED for it to look cool. So yep, there you have it. There will be links down in the description below to all the products that I went over. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.